Hold on. I love the hair.
Oh, that's not you. You went live already?
I think we are, but we'll see in just a second.
Because I was trying to share it.
We'll see in just a second.
Now, the webinar is now streaming live on Facebook.
Let's see. Give me a second, because I'm going. If it is, I'm going to share from my page, and we will start. It's not showing your face. It's not showing. Oh, there it is.
Tanya.
I'm here. Give me a second. I'm posting, and we're just going to start. I'm just posting the link, and we're going to see what we say.
All right.
And we'll go from there. We're gonna pray that it's actually going live, right? Let's see.
Checking.
But if not, we're gonna just have conversation, and we're just gonna pray the conversations are going the way that they're supposed to go.
Yeah, you're on there.
I'm on, so we're live. Okay, so we're there, we're good. So here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I have my notes here. Hey, Ursula, thank you for joining us. We're for being here this evening. It says internet connection is unstable, so let's pray that my connection gets better. But thanking everybody for being here tonight. This is our first episode of Coffee-sations Around the Table with Tanya. And before I introduce my esteemed guests, the two people who I love the most to have them on my first show, I want to tell you a little bit about Coffee-sations. Coffee-sations started in 2008. It was a round table with a group of friends. We were sitting at a table one night, having coffee like crazy. We're talking business, we're talking things about our kids, we were talking shop. And so in that, we just all of a sudden gave it a name. And so now with this new era of table talks, and with the advice of some trusted advisors, this was probably the best time to go ahead and start Coffee-sations, especially with the books that I just wrote, Confidential Conversations, and the last 9 conversations that kind of stemmed in everything that we're doing. And so I want to make this quick disclaimer. I am, and I'm going to say this out loud, I am a minister of the gospel.
Amen.
I am a minister of the gospel. This is not a gospel show. This is a show where we have real conversations, straight talk, real talk, just plain old girl talk around the table. We are free and at liberty, ladies, to talk about whatever we need to talk about in the manner in which we get it and we receive it. All of us are women of God, but I don't want anybody to think that this is a gospel show. I'm just a Christian woman, and we're just Christian women having straight talk. And
All right.
to go ahead, so now that housekeeping is out of the way, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest. I am honored. I have, and I'm going to introduce Annette first. Annette, I met on Facebook. I don't know how Tangela took over my screen, but Annette.
Cute though.
Well, I'll introduce Tangela since her face is on the screen. Tangela, I met about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago. And she was at a conference, and I thought Tangela was like the baddest chick at the conference. It was a conference, I think it was Finally Free or something like that. And Tangela—
Let it go.
It was called Let It Go. And
Let it go.
Tangela came in, and she had this wig on. I didn't know it was a wig, honey. She was pretty. And in her conversation, ministering to the women, girlfriend took that wig off, and she had no hair. And she let it go. And so in that, she was like me, just taking off her mask, extremely transparent, not afraid of what people thought. And so she and I developed this really good relationship. She is a minister of the gospel. She just received her doctorate degree. She is the co-founder of Eminence. It is a life coaching center, as well as she is the founder and a life coach at After This. And I'll let her tell more of that later on in the broadcast. But Tangela was a woman who was an abuser, and she is a woman who has survived abuse. Okay, so she was an abuser, and she is a woman who has survived abuse. So how fitting. I didn't know that first part. I just knew the second part. And so, welcome, Tangela. Thank you for being here. I love you and I appreciate you. Annette is, and I got to figure out how I get control again, because Tangela took all the control. But Annette, I met Annette on Facebook. It's amazing what social media do and how it brings so many people together. And she ended up in a prayer group that I was in, and I reached out to her for some stuff, and she, not knowing who I was, lovingly accepted my offer. And she and I have been communicating ever since. But she shared her story, and we'll talk about that throughout this conversation tonight. But she shared her story, which is so befitting tonight. But Annette is a woman of truth. That is her ministry. Her ministry is AP Annette Perez Ministries, but she truth coaching, truth life coaching, and she is a woman who is all about God's truth. She sees the world as world of clashing claims and competing worldviews. I love that, because we're going to talk about a biblical worldview pretty soon, and where our own feelings and circumstances change from day to day. So that's why Annette declares that nothing is more important than God's truth. Okay, she is a pastor and a prophetess, and like I said, she is the founder of AP Ministries as well as Truth Ministries. And so now that I got all that stuff out the way, let's talk. Let's just talk. And so listen. Tonight, we're talking about surviving him. It is Valentine's weekend. It's the month of love. I found out through my dear friend Tangela, this is the month of teen violence. And so what a great opportunity to talk about surviving him. And so with the recent headlines with our boy R, come on.
Yes.
I don't particularly think R is all in the problem by himself, but because R is in the headlines and we're talking about domestic violence and how he has done these things to women, and these children now with teen violence is here. The next 4 weeks we're going to be talking about various things, but tonight we're talking about. And so as we're preparing, I found this interesting article, and it talked about, and it said 1 of every 3 women have experienced some form of abuse. 1 of every 3. So one of us, there's 3 of us on this broadcast. So one, if not all of us, in some form have experienced some form of abuse. And it went on to say that 1 in every 3 women have somewhere that the male, it was in an intimate relationship that they've been in. And it also went on to say that, listen to this, that the church, so we're going to get good. It says that the church mirrored these same numbers. So here it is. You think about the mega churches with the 20,000s, the 2,000 people. 1 in every 3 people on the pew with you has been in some form of abuse. And it says, but the church is remaining silent. And so, Annette, that brings me to you, because you were a pastor, right? A co-pastor with your husband, you're a prophetess. And in our conversations, you told me that you were going through some stuff with your husband, the pastor, him in the pulpit every Sunday, preaching God's word, talking about and against sin. Yet there were some things in the house that just wasn't right. And so if you as a pastor's wife, your abuse came across from the pulpit. What, tell us, or the people who are watching, what was it really like, number one, and share as much as you like, but what was it like day in and day out, having to put on a mask, having to paint this picture that life was perfect with this guy that people esteemed, because you know how we are with pastors, having to see your ex-husband in the pulpit one way, and then you go home and he's an entirely different way. Talk about that.
Well, the worst part of it all is your children witnessing you go through this ongoing, facade. So that's really where it hits home for me, because they saw him one way in front of the church, which, by the way, he considers himself a prophet. So then, you go, I'm just keeping it real. I negate not his call. That's between him and God. But what I experience is not what I experience in biblical prophets.
Right.
So, it's just basically just going before the people, smiling, dressing up, looking cute, being that little, what they call, she's a dime piece. She's the one that you want to have in your arm to make yourself look good. And I made it look good. I did. I was before the people in the church. I smiled. I went along. I supported him. I verbally supported him. So, this is what abuse women do, to hide behind a cloak of the abuse. And especially
So how did you save face though? How did you, and Tangela, feel free, because we're having conversation. How did how did you save face in all of this? And I would even go so far as to say, how did it start, or when did it start?
It was started from the beginning. It was just me using the fact that I'm with God and I'm with this godly man and I'm doing right by God by being with him and marrying him. All of it was manipulation from the beginning, from the dream that his quote unquote dreamer in the church back in 2001 told him that we were supposed to be married. It was sheer manipulation from the very beginning. And here I am, a new babe in Christ. I'm thinking, hey, I'm doing God's will. Whether I see inconsistencies, there was betrayal, there was cheating before the marriage. There was a lot going on, but I figured, hey, you know what? I look past that. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm doing God's will. But it was always manipulation. It was always control and lies from the very beginning.
You just said that manipulation, number one, because most of the time when it comes to domestic violence, it is the guy, and we're not here to male bash, but it is the guy, number one, who exerts, and if I'm saying that word right, his strength or his control to manipulate. So it starts there. It starts, number one, in an emotional sense. It starts with buying of good clothes. I'll talk about my testimony in a minute. It starts with buying, nice shoes and nice watches, $3,500 watches and stuff like that. And you don't know that you're being manipulated because they bought you something. You don't know that you're being manipulated because, that you're in this place that you've never thought you'd be. So many of us as women want to be married, and so we don't care how we get there. Right? So in that, Tangela, if you want to interject, feel free. When you got into this place, though, and you saw the signs, I'm going to tell you, for me, I remember asking God, and I'm always praying about the people in my face, right, who God presents to me. And I remember God saying, you got to run, Forrest, run. When did you see the signs, and why didn't you run? Because I know you saw them.
I'll tell you this, and this is a word of warning for all women or men, because I believe men are being abused just as much as women are. We don't see the abuse. I've seen it over all the years I was in ministry for 18 years. I've seen women dominate men over the pulpit and browbeat them and, verbally assault them. And I don't take away from what men deal with either. But from my experience, from the beginning, I felt like I was wrong for seeing him in this bad light, because all these people pretty much worshiped the ground he walked on. Right. He would prophesy, he would lay hands on people. He seemed so accurate. He seemed so godly. The Bible talks about having that form of godliness, but that wasn't even in that person. But people are captivated by that type of show, because that's what we see. I mean, Tangela, you could talk about that. We see that on television. We see it in the local churches. Everybody's fascinated by what they see, but they're not looking into the deep part of what's going on in that person's life. and what's revolving around him. There was a lot of manipulation, a lot of cheating, a lot of women in the church sleeping with him while they're still calling me mom or pastor or prophetess, but they're all betraying along with him. So, you know, this is what kept me bound. I felt a lot of conviction, like I was wrong for accusing him. How dare I, you know? And that's how he would make me feel, like I'm doing God's work. How could you accuse me of cheating or lying or manipulating scripture? It was just terrible. So
that's another story for another day. But here's the question I'm going to pose to Tangela. You know, we all, since we all know at least one person, right? It's either our mother, our sister, us, the aunt, a friend, or even a teenager. Tangela, with this being Teen Violence Month, share with us, because it happens especially with young adults, and I'm going to call them 18 to 25 and 30, they begin to cohabitate.
Correct.
They're dating and they feel like this guy is their guy, and they want to lose him. And talk about, number one, why is it so hard for them to what makes them stay? As a relationships, when they know guys are toxic, number one, and when they're abusive, and when they know that it can be detrimental to them.
One, what I have seen is there is that low self-esteem at the time. And so young men, even as 15, 16, 17, they recognize the self-esteem issues. And so they already know what to feed. And so I had one young lady that I was coaching, and she was just saying that the attention, you know, it didn't matter how he treated her. It didn't matter what he was saying. He was trying to control her over the phone. So he wasn't even physically with her. He was just over the phone, and he was controlling her. And so because she was getting that attention, that's all that mattered to her. She just wanted the attention. She wanted that so-called love, you know. And her parents have an excellent relationship, laugh, joke, talk, all of that. So she didn't see that being raised. But where she was inside personally, that's what she needed, and that's what he was feeding. And so that's what I'm seeing with the young girl.
I'm gonna piggyback. My connection is somewhere cutting up, doing what it wants to do. But here, since we're on that, because you talk about the abuser, and you as a woman, and I said in your bio that you were
abused. Yes.
Tell me how that started as a woman, because I've never met a woman as an abuser.
Well, it started with the fact that I'm military. And so I trained with men, I ran with men, I hung with men. So I'm not going to say I thought I was a man, but I did think I could hold my own as a man, and I expected certain things. And so I was a dominant in the relationship. And so, you know, I ran over him, I stabbed at him, I cut him. I mean, you know, and I had no reason, because he gave me the world. It was just that I was having a dumb moment in my life, in my 20s. And so going through that, and then turn around and being on the other end of that situation, you know, I see it as kind of like a reaping and sowing, because I sowed that. I didn't see that growing up. You know, I didn't have that I can't even say that's my background. It's just that I thought that I was that dominant woman, and I'm going to take control, and I'm going to handle, and you're not going, and just foolish. But then on the other side, when my husband lost his job and he felt like he couldn't support us, and then I'm doing all the work, he couldn't handle that. He couldn't handle it at all. And so that's where he was throwing his control and his strength around, because he felt like he didn't have nothing else to bring to the relationship. So he wanted to bring me down. Of course, he had some people in his ear. And so he thought that he was going to bring me down, I guess, to be on the same level with him. I can't explain why he did what he did, but
go back to that. Let's go back to that part. Let's go back to that part. You said he had people in his ear. Oftentimes that's what happens. We have people who are who are in our ear, who are telling us nasty nothings, who are, saying, and because they have low self-esteem, and that it could be the same thing with the ex-husband, because I'll talk about me in just a second, when they have other people in their ear, and like you said, when they don't have what they think they should have, then they take it out on you. Talk about the friends that we need to, as women, especially young girls.
Wasn't a friend. It was his dad. It was his father. Wow. His father was telling him, his father was the one that introduced that I was a lesbian, because I had women coming into the salon. So how can I afford our lifestyle? Number one, you never asked me how much money I made. So his dad, on the outside of our relationship, just assumed that I was taking money from other people and other women was supporting our lifestyle. And so with him already having self-esteem issues, having a problem with not making money, he gravitated to that, whatever you want to call it. I can't even say his excuse. I can't say his advice.
So was his father an abuser?
I'm not sure, because I wasn't close to his father. I don't know anything about his father's background, but he was on drugs. But I don't know anything about his background. But when I went through the divorce and my lawyer pulled up his name, then I seen where this has been a pattern. He has been abusing women all along. And so when I called myself doing my research, it wasn't on Google. I didn't research in the proper places. This man had a long list to include murder. So not just abuse, but murder. So now we taking this to a whole nother.
Okay, so let's stop right there, because I'm going to interject a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to interject here, and because you just said something. Google and internet. And I remember, and this guy was not an abuser, but here's what women should do all the time. I remember meeting a guy. And let me go back. I remember needing a date. I did not want to be the only woman in the place without a date, because all of my friends were guys and I knew their wives, and I didn't want to be the only single girl in the house, right? And so I called my attorney and I said, hey, I need you to find me a date, right? And so he finds this guy, we go to dinner. I don't have any interest in dating him at all. He turns out to be a nice guy. I did not take him to the event, to the game. I didn't. But long story short, on that particular thing, and this was after the relationship I had been in, I Googled him. And like you, I found out that he was well dressed. He drove the Mercedes-Benz with the panoramic sunroof or whatever it was. He dressed in Armani every day. He had Gucci shoes on. He, ate dinner with the Congress people. He was that guy. But when I Googled him, he was attempted murder and murder for hire.
God.
So think about this. Wow. So women, so here's the thing, what we do. As women, we get caught up in the facade.
Yes.
And so going backwards, I'm in a relationship and I don't need your money. I made my money just as much as you. But I think I was telling Annette today, it was because I had not dated in a while. And so sometimes because we've not dated women in a while, because we feel like we are in this place and we're lonely, we end up in the relationship we're not supposed to be in. And so for the first time in my entire life, I lived outside of the will of God. I cohabitated, as my mother would call it, I shacked. I was shacking with a dude. And I remember making as much money as he did, if not more. I remember closing on, I was working with him and still a realtor at the time, and I had just closed on a $700,000 house like in 7 days. So I had bank, so I'm good. And this guy turned on me. And I remember I told you earlier, I asked God, is he the one? And God said, no, run. Long story short, we fought and we fought to the point where I had to plot my move to get out. I fought back. And I remember getting on the phone one night and I called my best friend, and it was 2 a.m. Atlanta time. And she goes, what are you doing? And I said, drinking. And she said, don't hurt him. Because she knew, she said, don't hurt him, because she knew I was about to go ballistic. And sure enough, that I did. Because what I had never been hit. I had never been verbally abused. So I didn't understand, like, how dare you? I'd never been emotionally abused ever in a relationship, and found out that he came from a house that a mom was schizophrenic. The brothers were schizophrenic. His dad was an abuser. He bragged about beating up his children's mother. Like, all these things, we miss the signs.
That's right.
We miss the signs because they buy us stuff, or they give us stuff, or they tell us that we're pretty. We need somewhere, and I need one of you to chime in on this. How do we get past that part?
I never had that issue. Mine was, I looked at, he was business savvy, I was business savvy, and what I seen was us building an empire. I didn't care about buying stuff because I had my own stuff, but I just seen us building an empire. So I can't tell you that I loved him. I just seen an opportunity for a partner to build an empire. That's it.
Wow.
Go back. Stop right there. Go back. You said something that I said for 3 years. You said, I never saw myself in love with him. But you stayed because you saw yourself building an empire with him. Here was in this, and I don't know if y'all can see me because I think the TV or something is frozen up. But at the same time, I said for 3 years, we listen to me. We bought a house. Well, we got a house together. I refused to put my name on a deed because I knew I was never going to marry him. For 3 years, I told him I would never marry you, but I stayed. Talk about why we stayed.
You hit, Tangela made some points, and you made some points earlier, where we have to recognize abusers who function in a narcissistic personality disorder, which is where I know my ex-husband has. And the problem with that is that they needed a supply. You became a supply, whether you realize it or not. You stuck around because you fed him what he needed. And then the number one primary narcissistic supply is attention. So you fed him that attention. Tangela had given the attention. I gave the attention that he needed, because without that, they can't survive.
Yeah. So
we are in a place where we're being inflicted on because they need attention, ultimately, whether it's publicly or privately. Wow. If you don't give it to them, it runs dry. And guarantee you, just like right now, I'm gone, but he has found himself another supply. Will that supply give him what I did? Not yet, because it's 18 years of buildup that he got.
So to that, what's the breaking point? What's the break? Because we're going to wrap up in a little bit, because we can go on with this. So we might have a part 2. But what was the breaking point that made you say, I got to make my escape, like each one of us?
To be honest, he threatened to beat my child, my oldest daughter. And it triggered me. Not like I should have left a long time ago. 5 children later, I should have left. But somehow that one comment triggered me, and I was already working with domestic violence. I was planning my exit down the line. It took me 8 months to leave. And when that day came, I called my advocate. I said, I'm ready to go. I left everything behind. I had a beautiful house. I had a ministry that I built with this man. I lost my vehicle, my brand new car, everything. I just left with clothes and my children, and I never turned back. And I'm a miracle to domestic violence, because I'll tell you ladies out there, sometimes it takes 6 tries to get away from that narcissistic personality disorder. It took me 1 try, and I never turned back.
That's may become the most abusive and the most aggressive when they know that you have caught on to what's happening and that you are plotting out. Because in my plot for me, what the knife in my back was I had just sold, again, I'm gonna talk about it, I just sold on a house and out, on a celebrity, a boxer, and sold the house to him. And I wanted to celebrate, and I come home. No, I go out of town. I go to Atlanta, only to find out when I got back that he had somebody in my bed.
My God.
That was my move, but I couldn't leave immediately. Here's the thing. I couldn't leave immediately. This is when I knew God was starting to work on me, because I was made to stay. I was made to stay so that I could heal, so that when I left, I didn't leave with baggage. And so in that, my prayer life started. In that, I started to plot my move. I started to look for a place that I knew could be very secure. In that, I moved from one bedroom to the guest bedroom. And so when he started to see, and I got very methodical about it, he was okay with it. Every once in a while, he would come back and, $400,000 house, you busting holes in the walls because I'm moving. And I remember a friend of mine called me from Atlanta, and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I'm good." And he goes, "No, when you say you're good, you're ready to hurt somebody." And I said, "No, I'm good." He said, "Do I need to come?" And I went, "No, I'm good." And I remember calling the U-Haul, but God had me stay there and get my faith up. I had to stay there and get my woman up again, because self-esteem had become real low.
That's right.
And so I was made to stay there. And people would go, "Oh, how were you made to stay there?" Because he had taken away the abuse by then. God had taken away the abuse. And it had gotten so good in the relationship that he proposed to me that Thanksgiving. And I said, "I told you 3 years ago I would never marry you, and I still mean it today. I will never marry you," right? And in that, I remember moving. And he offered to pay for the move because he knew he had no more control at that point. And I think for the women who are listening, you don't get to your breaking point. For me, it took one time, like you, Annette, it took one time. But my one time may not be a one time for you, because at that moment, for most women, that's when death literally happens. That's when life stops for many women at the exit.
Yeah.
So how, and Tangela, I don't know, how meticulous were you in plotting your way out?
In my situation, I found out that it was cursed. It was spoken for me to stay there. That was like the whole plot of it all, because I had someone, which was a cousin of mine, and he was saying that the whole time, which he wasn't lying. I was laying there saying, "Why am I here? I was making the money. Why am I here?" It wasn't like I was abused every day. We had three incidents in the course of the 4 years. And but when he jumped on my daughter, that's when I knew that, okay, you know what? Time out. I was good, because I thought that God put him in my life. Hello? I thought that God had put him in my life. And so we were looking to buy a 6-bedroom house. We were looking to buy a bigger home. And so I said, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and move out of this one. And I'm going to go stay with my friend. And then when the house is ready, we'll move in together. And so while I move while I move over here, you just stay on the road making your money, and I'm gonna be over here. But I already knew that my girlfriend and her husband was there. He was packing. I knew he wouldn't come over there. And so that I tried to slowly put the vision in there. But the final straw was when I was already gone and I took him something. And when I took him something, that's when he choked, getting ready to, and if my girlfriend never called my name, it would have been a tragic end. And so, but okay, Tangela done came back to herself, because Tangela was looking in that mirror because he walked behind the car, and I'm like, she said, "No, we're gonna do this the right way. We're gonna do this the right way." And I looked at her and I looked at him in that mirror, because I could have ran over him.
Oh wow!
But I chose to do it the right way. And so when I chose to do it the right way, even though you get out, people think that when you get out, that's like the end. That's not the end for some people.
It's not.
Come on.
That's the beginning of something different.
He went to jail for 4 years for that situation. But was he in jail for 4 years thinking about how he was going to get back, retaliate? Or was he in there getting restored and repaired? You don't know what direction they're coming. So you're paranoid because you're constantly looking over your back, because you don't know where their mind is. You know, because honestly, Satan has taken over.
Yes, he has.
At this moment, Satan has taken over.
And you said something. When it stops, when you leave, that's really the beginning, because you still have the scars, you still have the emotional issues, you still have the fear, right? So now you got to go through. Now we come in biblical. Now you got to go through a deliverance.
You gotta go to deliverance. But most of the ladies that I encounter, they're not here because they got away. But they didn't get to go through the process.
No.
Oh wow.
So that's why when I coach women through life happiness, I help them to recalibrate their mindset. Because just because you got away, just because you had mama in them house, that doesn't mean that he's not. Because I have 3 victims right now. They got killed. They got shot right in their mom's house while their mom is standing there. So that's not the answer always. You got to understand. You got to assess the whole, and you got to talk to someone who can help you think outside of, I love him. That's my husband, or that's my boo. I can't believe he's doing this to me. And you have to think about, I'm thinking about the kids. The kids got to go to school. Forget a school. We're trying to keep you alive. And so that's where the coaching comes in, because you think, I got it. I done left. That's not always the case, because when you left, you done killed his pride. And when you done killed his pride, he's going to get it back.
So stop right there, because we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to come to you, Annette. In that, leave the women with at least one thing, right? One thing, if that whatever that you could say to a woman or a young girl that's in a relationship that's toxic, what would it be right now for them to get out, to do what they have to do?
For me, I would say, just as you said, build yourself up. That's what After This is about. I empower the women to build themselves up to make the decision, not someone snatching you out, not because, oh my God, I think I'm gonna get killed, but you able to make the decision that, you know what, I'm empowered to live a better life. I know that God have more for me. Empower yourself, so then you be able to stand when you get out there and be able to handle whatever shake or whatever comes.
Right. Annette, what would you leave, and I'm going to make it real specific, because again, it hit the pulpit for you. What would you leave the woman in the pulpit who is going through this very same thing that you went through, but they have to save face? They got to show up and look pretty every day, every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Sunday. What would you say to the woman?
Primarily, know your self-worth. That's what I share with my coaching firm. I work from the inside out, not from the outside in, because I was working from the outside, dealing with a lot inwardly. So for those women or men that are out there dealing with this type of situation, I say, look for your self-worth, because that is going to let you know that is not a place for you to identify yourself publicly or over the pulpit. Getting accolades, acknowledgement, applause, all of that cannot replace the mental damage that you're giving yourself the longer you stay in that process of abuse or whatever it is you're dealing with. So to me, my advice is, know your self-worth. Know that you're worth it enough to leave, even if it's with your clothes on your back. I still have my dignity. I still have my worth. I'm still a woman of God. I still have my children. I've been able to get full rights for my children. I have a place where I could stay. I am good. I don't need all that external stuff and the applause from the audience at the church to say, hey, stay and continue to get mentally damaged. It's not worth it. Know your self-worth.
And so as we close, I'm going to give you guys a time in a minute to talk about your businesses and what you're doing. But as we close, I wrote this. Scripture tells us that, people are healed by the words of our testimony, and that the enemy was conquered by the blood of the Lamb. What I can say for the 3 of us who are sitting here around our respective tables is that we all conquered the enemy by the blood.
That's right.
We all conquered the enemy by the blood. No matter how we got through it, we conquered. And so my prayer today is that whoever's watching live or whoever's catching the replay is that they're healed by these testimonies. If you can get something out of the testimony, I don't know if it was too long or too short or whatever, my prayer is that you pull something out of it, because we have, and I wrote this on here, we have all not only survived him, but by the blood, we conquered him too. We survived the little him and the guy.
That's right.
But we conquered the peon in the enemy, and that was through the blood of the Lamb. And so if we don't get anything out of this, women, I would say to you, don't get so caught up, especially the Christian woman, don't get so caught up in the prophecy.
Come on.
Don't get so caught up in the prophecy that that's your husband. Pray and ask God. And when God tells you and shows you a sign, believe what God says. Do your homework like Tangela didn't do, right? Because I did, when I did mine on old book.
I did.
Like Tangela did.
The details.
See, when I did my homework, and I do your homework and believe what you see.
Believe what you see.
Follow your gut. If God said to me, and I jokingly say it, and I wrote this in my book, he said, run, Forrest. But I stayed because it was a beautiful community. I had my own money. It was a beautiful home. It was, and I didn't even want my name on the mortgage, but I drove up there every day. You know, and so we get caught up in the stuff. I didn't want my name on the mortgage. I didn't want my name even on the deed, because I knew I was going to leave. But I knew I was leaving, yet I stayed. Don't get caught up in the okie doke, sister, brother, you know, follow your instinct. And here's what I do say too, have you one good girlfriend? They talked about the man, the paralytic man in Luke, I think it's 18 or 11. He had 5 friends who knew he had to get to a place.
Right.
And if I could break that down as we close, they carried him from Dallas to Houston. That's the distance that they carried him to get to Jesus, from Dallas to Houston. And so get you some ride or die friends that will say, I'm going to ride with you if I have to tear the roof off the sucker to get you
and lower you down.
Go. Because
that's right.
We don't think about it. We don't, when we're in that state of mind, we're out of that state of mind. And we're not in our right thinking. And so we need a group of girlfriends to say, not on my watch. We need a group of girlfriends to realize that we're paralyzed mentally, and I need to take you to see that man called Jesus. And when I take you, don't you fight me for it.
That's right.
Come on. When I take you, because I see what you can't see, don't fight me for your savior, to save you. And so I thank each of you. The testimonies, honestly, I think we need to have a part 2 to this, but the testimonies, honestly, for me, because I learned something about Tangela. I didn't know you was, you was out there like that. I didn't know you were being but I see, and Annette, I knew her story because she shared her story, and I walked with her, in prayer with her story, with her escape. So to know and to look at her face and to see her smile when she says, I have my children. Because I remember the day that she wasn't sure she was going to get her children.
That's right.
So I thank each of you for, my first show. I need to come, we need to go to Philly. Well, she's going to be in Atlanta. So I need to be in Atlanta on a patio, and we can have, more detailed conversations. But here, I want you, tell the women or the audience where they can find you, can get some of your coaching or whatever it is that you're getting. Tangela and Annette, you go ahead and share.
Oh, I am the founder of After This. God just put ministries on the back of it. So I'm like, okay. But with God, there is an after this. And so I have my website, TangelaHarris.com, and you can see everything that I offer there, because I coach divorce, domestic violence, marriage, birth, just life happenings. Because one thing I do know, as women, we wear many hats, and sometimes we put those hats on at the same time. So then it starts choking us because of the weight. And so you have to have someone that can help you strategize your life, so then you can be more productive. So there's life after this.
Yes, I like that. I love it.
Where can I find you?
I like that. I got to get you connected with the domestic violence groups I'm in.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
Awesome.
Annette?
Oh, I'm Annette Perez. I'm starting from the ground up since last year. I just incorporated my ministry. I branched out on my own after 18 years. AP Ministries. I'm affiliated with HHCWW out of Bradenton, Florida. My chief apostle, Michael Bobian, is my covering for my ministry, and my ordination is through him. I believe in leadership accountability and a covering, which I'd never had when I was married before. I also do life coaching, spiritual coaching. It's something I've been doing throughout my whole ministry life. The Lord gave me the business before I left the marriage. It got stripped from under me, but I'm back in the game, and I'm praying for God to continue to increase that businesses as well. But I really appreciate the time you've given us today, LaTanya. And yes, LaTanya is a real ride or die chick, I'm telling you. Because she heard me crying before I left and saw me crying tears of joy when I left.
Yes.
And it's great to see we're still connected, because we started this last summer.
Yeah.
And look, God has done great things in a short span of time. And I'm proud of what you're doing. And you keep knocking it dead, because you're doing a good job.
I love you. Thank you so much. So listen, everybody, you can find Coffee-sations at Coffee-sations with LaTanya. Do me a favor, for those of you who are watching, go to the page Coffee-sations with LaTanya and like the page. Go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because if you don't catch it here, you can catch it on YouTube, and it's at LaTanya D. Walker. For more information about me, go to my website. Or to find out what other episodes we're going to have, go to the website, latanyadwalker.org. Next week, Valentine's Day, it is the season of Eros. Eros, come on, that's that sensual love that God talks about in the Bible. We are doing a Valentine's show. It is still in this What's Love Got to Do with It series, but I'm going to be with Minister Cheryl Reese Henry, and she is the author of the great book, Order in the House. And she and I are going to be talking about what women want. We're going to be talking from a biblical perspective on what women want in their relationships with guys and in marriages and all of that good stuff. And so tune in next Thursday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then go to the website again, because we're going to be talking to a group of pastors about what men need. We're going to be talking with a group of pastors, men pastors, to really tell us about what men need. So there are some episodes that are coming up that I'm excited about. So go check the website out, everybody who is listening. And just come on in next week and invite some people. I love you, ladies. We're going to sign off. We are way beyond time. I wanted to do 9:45, so we're like 15 minutes over, but I thank God for you. I love you. I bless each and every one, each of you, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.
All right, love you guys. Thank you, Tangela. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you, Annette.
We'll be in touch.
Sure will.
Okay.